Hey everybody, Derek here to bring another video for Fear the Walking Dead Season 2. And this video is going to be reviewing the latest episode of Fear the Walking Dead called Captive. If you have not watched the episode and you do not want to be spoiled in any way, then I would exit the video now and come back later, because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay. So I thought it was a pretty good episode. I thought it was another episode that really, it got better as it went on. I liked how it introduced a lot of things that we have seen in the past episodes. It helped to really connect some things together. And I thought the second part of the episode had some very shocking moments and definitely shows the direction of the darker tone that the show is really starting to take as we go further along in the apocalypse. You notice how people start to change. And I think that this episode, for some people, we really started to see the effects of the apocalypse and what it can do to people. But, overall, again, it was a great episode. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this half of the season is going to end and where the survivors are going to end up. This episode had two main storylines going on. One was with Travis and Alicia, and the other was with the rest of the individuals on the yacht. As you know from the last episode, Travis and Alicia had been taken by Connor's men and taken back to their base, which is actually on a boat. It's a very large vessel that is actually docked on the shore. So they're in an actual place that's very close by, and it has a lot of various different sonar capabilities. It's able to, shelter people, and it's also able to get them to see what is out on the water, which is how they're able to get boats on the radar. They look for boats, and it's basically they choose which ones to go to for various different reasons. Now, the extent of exactly what these individuals do is really hard to determine. From what I understand and from what was explained in the episode, whether Connor, the man who's the proclaimed leader of the group, is actually ordering terrible, evil things to happen to people, like ordering them to be killed, is not known. We know that he recruits people into his group because obviously he wants the group to flourish. He wants to bring in people that can help out. But what we noticed is that maybe there are other individuals that are doing things, and that it's not necessarily Connor. But we find out really the main motivation behind what happened in the last episode and why Travis and Alicia were both the ones that were taken. Alicia was taken because Jack really liked her. Jack had made this connection with Alicia when he had been talking to her on the radio in the season premiere. So the two had formed, somewhat of a connection, and Jack wanted her to come back. But Travis was actually brought back for another reason. And while Alicia is actually, immediately put to work and kind of welcomed into the group, Travis is put in a cage. And it's like a cell, And it turns out, many of us, of course, have been wondering since Alex, the survivor from Flight 462, since she was cut loose from the Abigail, where was she? Well, turns out Connor's group did pick her up. Many of us were wondering if maybe she was there. It turns out she is. And she actually has a conversation with Travis in this episode. She ends up going to the cell and talks with Travis and really blames him and the rest of the group for what they did. And she particularly is upset with Travis because basically in that moment when, Strand said no and other people were kind of putting in their input, that it was really Travis that made the compromise and said, hey, listen, you guys stay in the raft and we'll tow you. So Alex really puts a lot of responsibility on Travis for what happened to them being sent adrift by Strand and what happened afterwards. And it actually turns out that Jake has died, that has unfortunately passed, and it wasn't the most pleasant way to go, unfortunately. Basically, they were cut loose with very little resources. Alex ran out of water. Jake, his condition was getting worse, and Alex unfortunately had to suffocate him to death so he wouldn't drown and throw him overboard, just like she had to do with everybody else. When Connor's group, found her, she gave up the Abigail, which is how the Reed, Jack, and Dina were able to find the group. That's how the three of them were able to take over the yacht. So, unfortunately, that was really what led to that happening. And Alex really blames Travis a lot for what happened. The two of them have a little bit of a discussion, kind of, seeing what the other is thinking. Travis does admit his fault, in that. He does admit that he did err when he left them in the raft, that in a sense he really did felt bad, and challenges Alex to really think about whether they can really become better individuals. He really asks her, can we really be better than this? And I think he wants to, and I think he's challenging her to maybe think about the bigger picture. And he also talks about Liza. He talks about how he had to kill Liza when she was bitten, so kind of connecting the two together. Alex at this point is still with the group, even though Connor said that he could use her. Alex basically tells Travis, nobody uses me. So it makes me wonder what she's going to do in the future. Because even though with the events of what happened tonight, I don't think it's the last time we've seen her. And I also don't think it's the last time that we've seen Connor and his group. I think they will reappear at some point. Now, while this is going on, Alicia is getting to know Jack. And basically she is put to work looking for boats. She uses the sonar to find the boats that are out there. And of course, she's a little unsure about this job, especially about, what exactly does this group do? Do they really help people? Don't they? And Jack kind of puts the blame on Reed, that it's really Reed who does a lot of the terrible things out there. That maybe this is a legitimate group in some ways, that maybe Connor really does have good intentions in some respects, but because of what Alex said to Connor, he really doesn't trust the group. I think that in a sense, they may see them as the villains for casting Alex and Jake off while the yacht continued to go on its way. So it's really interesting how, even though we're in the beginning, these groups being good versus bad, it's kind of a really hard line to draw. And I can understand exactly what both sides are thinking. Well, what ends up happening is, of course, Alicia is still under the expectation that her family is going to be, sent to safety. Well, the boat is already on its way back, and she notes in the log where the rest of the boats are that the Abigail has already been logged in as a number, and she's concerned about her family. She's wondering, are they coming back? Are they actually safe? She doesn't know, and she starts to get really upset that the boat is coming back very early and actually attacks Jack. She smacks him in the head with the clipboard, just really gets aggressive. And at this point is really just concerned about her family. Well, basically, there's a lot of other things that are going on that's the reason why the boat is on its way back. A lot of the things that are happening on the yacht, but Alicia's really concerned and really hopes to escape and be with her family. So that's basically what's going on, is she's orchestrating her escape while the boat is on the way. Now, the boat, of course, is on the way because, of course, Madison wants to get her daughter and her husband back. That absolutely makes sense. And Strand does let her do this. Strand does not argue, realizes that Madison did save his life, so he grants her this opportunity to save her family. Of course, this does not make Luis very happy. Luis makes a note in this episode that, he actually is concerned about the extra people that are on board, because apparently the way that they're getting to Baja, may not necessarily be safe. It may not be, well, it's definitely not free, because it looks like they're paying somebody. Luis brought up the fact that, they have somebody waiting for them, and that person's only expecting 2 people, and now they have, maybe 7 or 8. So obviously there's a little bit of a concern there that's going to, carry over into the next episode based on the trailer. But that was really what was going on with them. The big thing that was really going on the boat was everybody getting ready to formulate a plan to rescue Travis and Alicia. And what that was going to result in was the group was going to trade Reed, who is being held prisoner, of course, with Travis and Alicia that Connor is holding. So that was the plan. And the yacht's on the way. And that was really what they hoped to do. However, Reed, he runs his mouth. He's a very arrogant person, he's that kind of person that can really get to you. And he tries to do that with Daniel, but Daniel's, experienced enough that he can really brush off the remarks. But Chris, on the other hand, well, first they made the mistake of allowing Chris to watch Reed. They decided to put him in front of the door. And Chris is hearing Reed basically poking fun at him for his mother dying. He ends up finding out, about Chris's mother, Liza, dying. He basically says he's an orphan too, Reed, and just starts to say these rude, terrible things. And this really gets to Chris. You see him becoming angry. We've seen Chris over the last 4 episodes really dealing with a lot of anger over his mother's death, and also really seeing him being plunged more into this world than many of the other group members. Maybe Daniel Salazar is really the only other person that's really had to make a decision like that with Adams. That I think that him and Chris have really experienced it the worst, because what ends up happening is, while the group is talking with Connor on the radio and proposing the hostage exchange, there's a gunshot. Of course, you're wondering, well, what in the world's going on here? They run down and they find that Reed is dead, and that he's been shot in the face. And Chris is just standing there. He has the gun. Of course, he did it. And he claims that Reed was sick. He was going to turn. That he says that Reed died, and then he shot him in the head to prevent it. And obviously, I think that many of us know that's obviously not what happened. I think that Chris made the decision to shoot Reed for a lot of different reasons. 1, out of anger. 2, the other thing that I think happened was, we saw earlier in the episode that Chris was talking about the guilt that he felt. He talks to Nick and basically says, well, I didn't shoot them. I thought about it. I was up on the deck with Ophelia. I thought about shooting them, putting an end to all this, and I didn't, and now look what happened. And he felt responsible for that. And he decided, in that moment, that he was the one that was responsible for Travis and Alicia being taken and everything. And Nick tries to say, look, man, it wasn't your fault. I mean, come on. The one woman was pregnant. Who's going to shoot a pregnant woman? It makes sense under the circumstances that, Chris acted the way that he did. But obviously for Chris, this is not enough. So I think that really he shot Reed for all those reasons and then lied about it. Because, of course, Reed still had the crowbar impaled through his belly. But nonetheless, it's pretty clear that he shot Reed because he was angry and because of the guilt that he felt. And it was just outright murder is what happened. However, Reed comes back as a walker. The gunshot may have killed him, but it didn't kill his brain. So Reed comes back as a walker, and they still go ahead with the prisoner exchange anyways. Madison heads out on the raft and heads toward the dock, where Connor and 2 of his men come out with Travis. Now, Alicia isn't out there. Alicia is kind of doing her own thing. She ends up locking the pregnant woman inside of the cell. She has a little bit of a fight with her, and then she goes on top of the deck of the boat, and Jack actually follows her. Now, while this is going on, Travis is standing there with Connor. He has his hands tied behind his back, bag over his head. Madison comes onto the dock and proposes the exchange. Travis and Reed are exchanged, and of course, when Connor pulls off the bag, Reed's a walker. What happens? Reed attacks. Connor is bit on the arm, and the other guy is bit on the neck. One of Connor's men is bitten on the neck, so he's a goner. And Travis basically incapacitates the other guy so that they can get away. Up on the top of the deck, Jack is pleading with Alicia to stay with him, arguing that, the people that she's with are not good people, kind of calling her family bad people, which, I mean, again, with the story that they're receiving, I can kind of understand why they might think that. But he asks her to stay, but Alicia won't, and she ends up jumping into the water, gets on the raft, and Travis, Alicia, and Madison head back to the boat, which ends the episode. So, I think that it definitely was a good episode. The ending was great. I think it was, action-packed right there at the end. But there are a lot of things that are still, up in the air. One is, how is the group going to get to Baja with all of them there? And as well as, I don't think this is the last that we've seen of Connor's group. I really do have to wonder if Connor has enough sense to cut his arm off. I really do wonder if we might see him again, if we might see Alex again. What if this group decides to attack them out of revenge? I think it could happen. We may not have seen the last of them. And I really think that it was a very good episode, and there were a couple of other things that I thought were really noted in this episode. One was that whenever Daniel was tying up Reed as a walker, he started to hear voices saying, "Take the gun," in Spanish. So I think he might have been having some flashbacks about some of the things that he did when he was a soldier and when he was a torturer. So I think that we might be seeing Daniel struggle with some of that in the next couple of episodes. We saw Ophelia being concerned that she might be getting too used to everything. She talks about this with Nick as they're, dealing with Reed's body. And I think that we really are seeing Ophelia becoming a stronger survivor, someone who is more independent. And I'm really looking forward to seeing her potentially being more involved with things as the show goes on. And the other thing I thought was notable was Madison fighting for Nick. Nick actually wanted to go on the hostage exchange. And earlier in the episode, Madison had pretty much told off Strand for sending her son out there to help. But we saw that Nick was really willing to do that and was really willing to put his life on the line to protect everybody and to get Alicia and Travis back. And I think that we're seeing Madison really struggling with, letting her son grow up and letting him go. And I think that part of that comes down to just the way the world is, the way, the fact that he has had a pretty rough past, that she hasn't been able to take care of him in the past, and I think still wants to, and maybe wants to do so more than ever now. So I'll be interested to see how the family dynamic continues as the season goes on as well. So I thought those were some other things that happened in the episode that were very noteworthy. And again, I'm looking forward to next week. I think it's going to be a good episode, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen. So with that, I'm going to bring this video to a close. I want to thank all of you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, don't be afraid to leave them. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. And if you have any suggestions for future videos that you would like to see, don't be afraid to suggest them. Have a very wonderful evening, and thank you very much for watching.